get them. That's what happens if you cancel your account. Had a smudge. Today we're gonna be doing some Q&A. Like always, we like to kind of wait a little bit, gather some questions from the videos we've been doing, and take them, put them on a nice fancy piece of paper so I feel like a news reporter.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
And answer some questions for you guys so that, your question could benefit somebody else. All right, so Sergio asked, in a different video, you mentioned an absentee is not a list. We get this question a lot. So how will you know if a prospect is tier 2, if it is out of state and vacant, but absentee isn't coming, that can stack? Not sure what absentee, in state or out of state, would fall under. It's just a filter, right? The reason why I say absentee is not a list, and what I mean by that is that it's not just a list you would just buy. You're not buying an absentee list, because when you get absentee data, you're always filtering by equity or tax delinquency or something else. It is not the primary thing. It is just a subset, that identifier that you're wanting, because you think that because they're absentee, they're gonna be more motivated to sell. So like inside of REISift, for example, we teach people to have a high equity list, a tax delinquent list, a very high level on the real list that it is, because you can always create an absentee list by simply going into your records page, clicking on filter records, choosing additional parameters in others, and then switching that absentee filter to yes, absentee, meaning as long as they don't live in the address, or as long as the address is not the same as the mailing address, it's an absentee owner. And then you could go deeper than that on your absentee filter and say, well, I want them to be absentee in state, meaning that they live in the state that the property is in, but not at the same address, or they live out of state, or at least they receive their mail out of state. And so it's really preference up to you. If you would like to focus on people who are out of state and they have a vacant property in the state that you live, then by means all, do that. But just understand that just because something's absentee does not mean they don't live in the address. For example, a post office box makes an absentee address. Well, does that mean they don't live in the property address? No, it just means that they receive their mail at the post office. People misconstrued what absentee means as them not living in the property, and that's just not true. It just means they receive their mail somewhere else. The absentee name in itself is a UPS thing, is a USPS thing, right? Not so much a marketing thing. Okay, cool. If we did creative financing in addition to wholesaling, can we completely eliminate the high equity bucket? No, there's no reason. I mean, it's just because if something has high equity, just because you're doing creative financing does not mean you don't focus on high equity properties. I mean, that's just kind of silly. The idea that like creative financing is only for low equity properties is terrible idea. In fact, so much so that a lot of people are buying properties that have low equity, and only low equity because it's the easiest person to buy a house from when you don't have money, because they're willing, oh, you're telling me you buy my house now and I can get as much as I want for the property? Like that whole sales tactic, it really breeds and creates a, it doesn't make really a business for very long, for longevity. In my opinion, I really think that even creative financing individuals and the smart ones do this already, should be focusing on problems, right, that creative financing solves, okay, that still involve equity, okay, especially for the amount of equity that it would take for you to be able to sell the home. So buying the property, let's say at market cost, but at least having 9% equity is really smart, because what if you buy it today but you need to sell it tomorrow? You need enough equity to pay the agent, to pay the closing cost and everything else, or you're coming out of pocket for all of that. Okay, so equity lists are still important. However, if you want to focus on a certain type of individual, such as low equity properties that have recently moved, that might be a good list in order to get properties that have that criteria that you know how to solve. But to think that you don't market to high equity properties because you're doing creative financing is you don't fully understand what creative financing is for. It's not for anything more than having an additional tool in your bucket to be able to close a deal. So still market to everybody the same exact way, but add creative financing as an option that your acquisitions people are trained in so that they can close deals, more of your leads to, convert more of your leads into more deals, right? Using more tactics, okay? All right, Victor, what is deep prospecting? Is really what he's asking. He said, doesn't necessarily mean that we have to continue to market to them. Is that because it may not be worth it, meaning not monetary viable? So what Victor is talking about here is when we're marketing to records, especially here at REISift, the way we educate it is you have an overarching amount of records, right? And out of those records, we narrow down into the people we want to market to. And we start marketing to them and we call them 1 time or 2 times or 3 times and they don't answer the phone, right? They don't answer their text messages and they haven't engaged with us yet. So we move them over to a status in REISift where we call it prospecting or deep prospecting. And what deep prospecting is it's the ability for you to dig even deeper into that person's life, right? Researching the family members, trying to reach them on Facebook and really trying to get a hold of somebody who's familiar with this property address so that we can get the message out there that we're interested in buying this property, right? So in one of the videos that he watched, I had said that just because it's deep prospecting does not mean that you need to deep prospect them right now. And the reason why I say that is because when you're marketing and you're doing marketing the right way, just as many people as you're reaching, you're removing from your marketing, right? So for example, I have 1,000 records and I reach 250 of those homeowners and they're either interested or not interested, right? No matter what, we're updating our data and they're being removed from our marketing. But there's an additional 250 to 500 people that I've now finished calling 2 or 3 times and they're not answering the phone. So I need to remove them from my marketing because I'm just wasting money at this point trying to reach them through this tactic that they're not responding to, right? So I need to move them from that. Or maybe even, it's not that they're not responding, it's that every phone number that I have for them is wrong, or it's a dead number because it's been out of service for a long time, or whatever the scenario is, or I'm sending a text message to a landline, things like that. So we need to remove those from that, data set. And we then don't want to just spin our wheels, just marketing to those 250 or 500 people over and over and over, because we could just be calling another 1,000. So you got to be very careful with digging deep into those people you're not reaching. And the reason why a lot of our community focus on those deep prospecting records is because if you're not reaching them, most likely no one else is. So you going the extra mile typically means you're going to make a lot more on the deal. So what I recommend you do in situations like that where you're segmenting out and kind of just putting these records you're not reaching and mainly just getting them out of your main marketing strategy so that you're not spending money on them no more. You then send direct mail to those so that it's a really easy outbound strategy that you can get some inbound from. But any of that return mail that comes in, now let's go ahead and let's do the return mail. Let's use that return mail as a way to kind of narrow down that bucket of deep prospects even further so that we can focus maybe on only the 20 return mail pieces rather than the 500 or 1,000 that I currently have in that bucket, okay? It's a way to kind of continue to narrow down and focus that energy on the things that have the highest potential for us to yield the best result. Okay, fantastic. So I apologize. I'm going to just say Mr. or Mrs. Drayton. Anyway, Sensei Flow Blueprint. Would cycling campaigns be the same as cycling presets? Would I continue to use the same preset after one campaign ends? Absolutely. So you're going to have an overarching preset. Okay, so let's just say you're focusing on tax delinquent data. Okay, and so you have overarching tax delinquent data. Then you have another filter preset that's looking for tax delinquent data that has phone numbers but does not have any call attempts, right? And it does not have any status as lead or follow-up or anything like that. So you're basically finding all of the tax delinquent properties that haven't been marketed to yet, but they have phone numbers, right? So that's our initial bucket of records, okay? And so we're gonna take that initial bucket of records, and we're then going to assign a certain amount of those records to an individual to start calling. If it's the Sensei Flow or single line prospecting, then you're gonna assign it to somebody in REISift, and they're gonna be working in REISift to call, those records. Or it might be sending it to Calltools or ZenCall or some other bulk dialing or bulk marketing, tool, be it direct mail or anything, and for their first attempt there. So we have the bucket of the initial. These are all the people we haven't marketed to yet. We send it to wherever it's being sent to do that first marketing attempt. And when that marketing attempt happens now, the record is being updated with, okay, this was my first attempt in either bulk cold calling, or this was my first attempt with my Sensei Flow. And so you then have filter presets for attempt 1, attempt 2, attempt 3, okay? And so what's happening is you're creating this flow of everybody I still need to market to, everybody that's been attempted 1 time but not 2 or 3 times, everybody who's been attempted 1 and 2 times but not 3 times, and then everybody who's been attempted 1, 2, and 3 times. And so once you go from, okay, assigning it for the first time to those records ending up down in that bottom layer of, okay, these people have been reached out to 3 times, now you gotta ask yourself the decision, do I move this to another strategy? Do I have to send direct mail at this point? And of course, you could go up to 5 times for bulk dialing. Some people go up to 15 times. Really, you just gotta understand that general concept of all the stuff I haven't skip traced, all the stuff that I have skip traced or that still needs marketed to that we haven't reached, all of the records that we've attempted 1 time, 2 time, 3 time. What do I do next? Do I skip trace a second location? Do I send to another marketing strategy? And so on and so forth. And you continue to refine that until you really build a really smooth flow so that as you bring new data into your company, boom, automatically, if it doesn't have phone numbers and it's tax delinquency, it's gonna end up under that filter preset. I'm gonna skip trace it. If it gets phone numbers back, boom, it's gonna end up into the stuff that needs marketed to. And it's just, it's just a conveyor belt, okay? Great question. Justin asked, I didn't see anything about tagging each attempt, attempt 1, attempt 2. Is that part of the flow as well, or does that only exist with bulk dialers as in the auto lead gen challenge? Justin, inside of the diagram for the Sensei Flow, which should be in the description of all of our videos pretty much now, if you download that, you'll see that it says if the person doesn't pick up the phone, you gotta look and see what attempt is this. Is it attempt 1 or attempt 2 or attempt 3? If it's attempt 2 or if it's attempt 3 or whatever it is, then choose this tag. So it's actually inside of the data flow diagram that we give to everybody to do that. So the answer is yes. In bulk dialing, you might use cold call A01, and we actually have a new filter coming out. We actually track now when you send data to Calltools or any of our integrations, we have marketing trackers that say, okay, this has been attempted 1 time to the dialer, 2 times to the dialer, and we actually are releasing filters for that. So you can filter by call attempt 1, call attempt 2, call attempt 3. So you actually won't even need to apply tags anymore unless you want to for filtering purposes, but there's gonna be a filter for call attempts and SMS attempts as well. So the quick answer is you could either push the plus button for call attempts, or you could do the filters by adding tags. And I prefer either way to have those tags added so that I can filter by the stuff that's been attempted 1 time but not 3 times, or 2 times but not 4 times, or so on and so forth. But it's totally preference. You just gotta understand the concept of filtering, and that if you add a tag, or add 2 tags, add 3 tags, then you can use those filters to say, okay, I wanna see the data that has the 1 tag but not the other 2 tags, and so on and so forth, okay? Poncho, pulling a divorce list to find motivated seller leads from Propstream. Thank you for educating us rookies. I have a scenario maybe you could help with, as I'm just learning about wholesaling. Welcome to real estate. I was just texting with a woman that is divorcing and says she needs to sell fast and is looking for recommendations on realtors. I offered to help her. Her response was, sorry, divorce situation that needs to be listed. Are there circumstances where a wholesaler or investor could not be used or wouldn't be ideal? In some cases, when there's court situations involved, the court dictates how the assets are, need to be sold because of the whole, splitting it with the spouse, and sometimes this happens in probate situations and trusts and things like that too, where they say, hey, the property has to be listed because it needs to get fair market value. Typically, though, if the husband and wife agree, then the property can be sold outside of that if they request it to the judge. But yeah, in some situations there is obviously some things that can happen, but I think the big thing that you need to take from this is that you say wholesaler / investor. I want you to remove that statement and put, are there circumstances where I need to, work to find a solution where I make money in any real estate deal because I'm not a wholesaler or investor. What I am is I am an individual who makes money through real estate transactions, okay? It doesn't matter if it's an agent, it doesn't matter if it's this or that. You gotta always ask yourself, as Poncho, how do I make money from this deal? What do I need to do? Because what happens is a lot of people, they want to be in this bucket of like wholesaler or investor just because it sounds a certain kind of way, or they don't want to do a certain kind of work. But in all reality, they end up having situations like this where there's a realtor, literally the universe is putting somebody in front of you right now that you could make money from. The issue is not the lead, the issue is that you don't have a way to actually make money from it, right? And that's the problem. So people will have where, oh yeah, no, I want to list a property, I need to list my property, I want the most out of my property. They get this told to them many times a day, but for whatever reason, they don't go out and get their real estate license, right? And some people, maybe it's because they can't, because of their background or something like that, but they also don't go network with a realtor. So they don't do the things that put themselves in a position to where every conversation they have, they're able to assist in that, in that transaction, okay? Okay, so those were questions that were from our YouTube channel. Now we're gonna move into questions that are in our mastermind community on Facebook. If you're brand new to this, on Facebook, if you type in REISift Mastermind Community, it's a community that we allow investors to go into, real estate individuals, to network together, and a lot of our users are in there, nearly all of our users are in there, as well as a bunch of other people that sooner or later turn into users when they see all the questions and successes that our users are having. However, Harrison asked, what's up, ninjas? When you guys send direct mail, do you send it out with just one phone number, or do you allow each acquisitions manager to have their own number attached to their postcard? So I prefer to keep direct mail really simple. One phone number, one inbound. But the biggest thing that I want to express in this is that I do not believe, it's not my belief, of course, people can do their operations however they want. This is just my recommendations. When it comes to direct mail and it comes to the sales process, okay, inbound leads should be cased through somebody else. Even if it's coming in from like a bulk dialer or an SMS stuff, those leads should be cased. Okay, your acquisitions individuals need to have essentially like that barrier, right? They gotta have that firewall, right? Where the person who said, hey, are you interested in selling your house? And then they're like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm gonna send you to an acquisitions individual. They're gonna make you an offer. Don't send it directly to an acquisitions person. A lead manager needs to hop in there. They need to have a conversation with that person and figure out, is this really somebody that needs to speak and get an offer? What is really going on in this situation? What can I do here? And sometimes the lead manager can actually get pretty close to even locking it up, but they're gonna now pass that over to an acquisitions person, where that acquisitions person isn't there to build the relationship and everything else. The lead manager is that really personable individual. They're passing that over, that credibility over to the acquisitions person, not to listen to their story, but to lay out all the options from creative financing to owner, the owner financing stuff, which is really creative financing, to the cash offer, to working with one of our internal agents. They're there to sell the possibilities. The lead manager is there to gather all that information so that the acquisitions person can explain and lay out all of those possibilities to the seller as many times a day as possible. Okay, and so oftentimes what people mess up on is they have a ton of acquisitions people in their company and either no lead managers, or they have one lead managers and still have a ton of acquisitions people, when in all reality, they probably need to increase their marketing. They need to hire 2 or 3 lead managers and only need maybe 1, if not 2 acquisitions individuals. And so this direct mail should have one phone number. It should go into the office phone that gets, first to the lead manager. The lead manager is going to call back and do those follow-ups to try and engage that direct mail. And if it's somebody that's of interest, then they're going to kick that interested individual over to the acquisitions with all the information already laid out for that acquisition, so that when that acquisitions individual calls, they have all the options. They've already done their research and they're ready to make an offer and get this thing taken care of. So that's my opinion on that. Toddy, hey everyone, I'm trying to close a deal where the owner is open to a short sale but doesn't have the time to contact the bank, basically doesn't want to. I can't think of what the authorization letter is called where I can contact and negotiate with the bank on behalf of him. Can someone please remind me? It's on the tip of my brain. Google and YouTube hasn't helped. So I didn't pre-read these before I walked in here, and I cannot remember the name of that document as well. However, this is going to happen to you plenty times in your life, and someone in the comments below, I'm sure, is going to be able to post it. But really, it's an authorization letter is what it really boils down to. There is an official name, and some of them are actually officially called an authorization letter. But really, it's any letter that states that you are able to communicate on behalf of that individual. A power of attorney would work as well. Really, you just need to be able to communicate on behalf of that individual. If you ever can't think of, the different, maybe documents or processes that are needed in the transactional phase of things, call the title company, and the title company has these things. They need those. The title company does those daily because the title company needs to get those signed from the seller in order for them to call and get the payoff amount as well. So the title company does these every single day, multiple times a day. And so you can just call them and they should have one already for you. And if you don't do it, right, the title company will do it, right? So it's not, it should automatically, a good title company is going to take care of that for you either way. But if you want to get ahead of it, because what you don't want to do is get it under contract, then send it to the title company, and it turns out it's not able to be a deal, right? Like maybe that person's not even on the mortgage, right? And they're just saying that, and so on and so forth. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Hopefully that answers some of y'all's questions. We do really appreciate the questions. Continue to ask questions, and we'll get and gather them together and do these Q&As so that you guys can see a little bit more in depth into it, because I can explain much better in this video than typing it out as a short response on YouTube. And don't forget to join the community group if you're not in it. Don't forget to sign up for REISift. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to keep being awesome. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.